So we all procrastinate. It's a fact. But really, what's behind procrastination? And there's a lot of reasons why, depending on who you are, your circumstances. Obviously, there's some patterns and themes that we all can actually relate to, but it's going to be different for everybody. So what I'm going to do is dive into the 3 reasons why we procrastinate, and even more importantly, what we can do about it. So if we take a second and just get honest with ourselves about what's underneath the procrastination, it actually gives us a roadmap. And I'm going to explain this in a few. It actually gives us a roadmap to disrupting the pattern of procrastination so that we can move our lives forward. Welcome to the Monday Message. My name is Francis, and I'm just going to dive deep into procrastination. Monday Message is just bite-sized nuggets to inspire you, to get you moving forward. So we all face mental blocks from time to time and can find ourselves stuck in the cycle of procrastination. There's a lot more going on here than what it seems. We're human after all, and procrastination isn't always related to laziness, regardless of what you've been told. So I'm going to discuss 3 reasons, again, why we procrastinate, what we can do to stop procrastination. Remember, and keep this in mind as you listen to the video, that procrastination is the voice of fear. So what we're going to do is reframe it and use procrastination to our advantage. I love to reframe things because it gives us a different perspective so that we can actually just tackle the thing that we need to tackle so that we can get to the next phase in our lives. As we know, procrastination is often used as a tool to avoid things that we really don't want to do, or things that we feel very unprepared or unworthy of doing. It's also used as an excuse, especially for those of us who are afraid of failing or we're afraid of rejection. Often we say, oh, we'll start tomorrow, start the next day. Today was just too busy. I've fallen into that several times on various things that I wanted to work through. So no one's immune to this thing. But there are ways that we can use procrastination to our advantage, like I said earlier. So anytime that we find ourselves procrastinating, it could often be that we're really stressed out or overwhelmed about something. But there's little tweaks that you can do to actually work through procrastination and pivot. So this leads me to my first reason, which is we're avoiding something that might feel difficult or feel incredibly uncomfortable. Most things in life require a bit of discomfort. There's a quote by Suzanne David that says, discomfort is the price of admission to a meaningful life. So for you to have a meaningful life, there's got to be a bit of discomfort somewhere. You can't really escape it, but there are ways that we can work with it versus allowing it to consume us and lead us in paths that we aren't wanting to be. But just because there's discomfort doesn't mean that things will always take effort. There are ways in which we can develop a rhythm and flow when it comes to the things in our lives, but we just have to just remove some of the muck so that we can actually move forward. So when we're feeling like something is a bit difficult or uncomfortable to do, we can ask ourselves a few questions. The first thing that we can ask is, what do I need to learn to make this feel less difficult or less challenging or less uncomfortable? Sometimes it's just a skill gap, which means we might need support from a professional to help us strengthen our skills, or we can do it ourselves and figure out what is it that we need to learn so that we can actually make this thing less difficult. Well, less difficult enough for us to get started, right? Because we might still learn the thing and it still might be difficult. It's not about necessarily removing the difficulty. It's about removing the avoidance step in between you taking action towards that thing. In other instances, it could be that we know how to do the thing, but we're having a hard time accepting something. We might know exactly what to do, but we haven't accepted it, so we drag our feet. So if we accept the thing by just being honest with how it makes us really feel deep down inside, then we can actually do something about it. I'll use a very light example. I might have used it before, so I apologize if you've heard it already. But I had a client who wanted to get in the habit of journaling. She knew that it would help her in processing the things in her life, but she just really didn't like journaling. So I was like, then don't do it. Why do it, right? If there's something that you really have a strong aversion to, don't do it. Find another way to do the thing. So I always say, find the path to least resistance. Find something that is more in alignment for you that will actually help you get the results that you're looking for. Another situation that might feel very hard is maybe we need to have a very hard conversation with somebody or even with ourselves, but we really don't want to do it. We know how to have this conversation, but it's hard. So we avoid and we put it off for as long as we can possibly do so. But in the process of putting that off, we might be hurting those around us, and we also are really interrupting our own progression. So part of this is letting go of whatever idea that we have of what that outcome might be. And we also might want to think about letting go of how someone else might feel, because we can't control the outcome and we can't control how somebody reacts or feels about a certain particular thing. So in the process, part of this is honoring ourselves and moving forward. So let's recap. Is this a skill thing? If so, where can we go and who can we talk to learn about the thing so that we can actually move forward? Is this something I already kind of know how to do, but I just don't want to do it? Then what are certain things that we need to accept? And how can we let go of a certain emotion, a certain idea, so we can make the necessary changes so that we can actually move forward? And accepting it does not feel good. Accepting it has nothing to do whether it's right or wrong. It's just accepting what is out of our control. All right, let's go to the next step. So number 2, we might just procrastinate because we actually don't know what to do next. And I want to highlight the word next, because we don't necessarily need to see the whole thing in front of us, especially when about to make a decision. We don't need to see everything or know everything, but we need enough information just to figure out what's next. But this can also lead to a crippling paradox. And what I mean by this is that we have to be mindful. Is it the information I lack, or do I have too much information and I'm stuck in an analysis paralysis? Because sometimes we don't know what to do next, so we put off making a decision until we have more information. But then we get caught up with getting too much information, which makes us overwhelmed and overloaded with too much information. So we don't take action. Again, this can lead to an endless amount of research. I'm someone who likes to research a lot of different things, so I have to actually give myself a cutoff point so that I could just be like, okay, that's enough. I know enough, I have enough, so I could just move forward to the next step. So what we can do is ask ourselves, what is one thing I need to know so I can do the next thing? I may not need to know it all. I only need to know a little bit. And do I have enough to move towards the next step? I had this client who was getting into entrepreneurship, and he was actually going into an industry that he was very unfamiliar with. And so because he was going into this new industry, he had very much a lack of confidence in taking the next step. And because of this lack of confidence, he really struggled with doing the next thing and the next thing and the next thing. And he was putting off certain things. And by him putting off certain things, it really impacted his investors and the relationships that he had with folks. And so one of the limiting beliefs that he had, I really don't know how to run a hotel. Like, I've never been in the hotel management industry. What do I know about that? You know, there are a lot more hotels out there, a lot more people that are experienced. And so this was part of the procrastination. But as you can see here, this is more of a limiting belief thing. So I just suggested, stop thinking about the idea of not knowing how to run a hotel. What is the next best step? The next best first step that you can take to just move the needle forward. And so together we sort of worked around breaking what those steps are down so that he can actually just take the next step. And he felt a lot better and less overwhelmed. And this came down to just a skill gap. So let's just recap really quickly. Maybe I don't have enough information, and that's why I'm procrastinating. Maybe I have too much information, so I'm in freeze mode. I'm stuck in endless amount of research. And so that's also why I'm procrastinating. So let me take a look at, do I have just enough information to take the next best step? And so number 3 is very common. We've all been here. We procrastinate because we are afraid of failure and rejection. I mentioned this earlier in the video. So we put off starting anything new because if it doesn't work out right away, then no one will know that we actually tried. And so they won't bear witness to our failures. Brendan Bouchard once posted something and it resonated with me a lot because I get stuck with this as well sometimes. And he said, you're just afraid to start small. Everyone starts off small. No one starts off hitting a home run the first hit. So keep that in mind. It's okay to start small because you have to start somewhere. So because of this fear, we don't take action. And it's a paradox because action is what we need to know so that we know if something is quote unquote a failure. Action is what we need to know in order to be rejected at something. And again, failure and rejection, all of that is just feedback and detours and pivots. That's how I always reframe it. So if you're not failing at something, that means you're not living, you're not taking enough action in your life. And so whenever we're thinking about failure and rejection, I always recommend to do our best to remove the emotion out of it and begin to think logically. And what this just basically means is like, okay, ask yourself, where is the evidence for this failure or rejection? Where can I look around my life? Where can I find the evidence that says this is true? This is the case. On a deeper level, we know that when we might think of ourselves like, oh, I don't want to be a failure. I'm afraid of rejection. I'm afraid to fail. This is a much more deeper issue. And at the root of it is just inner child healing. And that's just tied into self-worth and self-esteem. So this is just a great opportunity to do some inner child work. Again, all of this is just feedback, right? And that's how I'm going to approach it. So this means I just need to get to the root if I'm unable to really move forward and my procrastination is paralyzing. In the meantime, we can just do a bit of logic checking. So here are some questions to ask yourself. Where's the evidence for the fears that I have? So yeah, in the past, I may have tried something, it didn't work, so I failed. Okay, so then we just need to redefine what it means to fail. Again, failure is just feedback. It's nothing personal. How do we know if something will work or not? If someone will reject us or not, unless we actually try to do the thing? Yeah, we don't. So by taking the action, we can actually get the honest feedback that we need. And so that is when we'll know our fears are justified or not. So let's recap. If we fear failure or rejection, this is a deeper issue tied into inner child work. So that's where we can actually start. Use logic instead of emotion so that we can gain clarity about what's real and what's imagined. So we're getting to the end of this video. So before I go, I just want to say one last thing. Procrastination isn't a bad thing. In fact, it's a necessary compass on the road towards clarity. Often procrastination is a way for us to regulate our emotions, our energies. So we need to do a check-in with ourselves and ask, what is it I'm really feeling? What is it do I need in this moment? And I usually say, put a hand on your heart, usually like a cross or one hand, whichever feels comfortable, and just really check in with your body and ask, like, what is it do I really need? And what's really going on here? Sometimes I recommend disrupting the procrastination by doing something that brings you joy, whether it's something creative, going for a walk. So we can use procrastination here to gain clarity in our lives versus using it as a way to remind us of what we lack or what we're not doing enough of. Now, I can really talk about this forever, but the Monday message, just bite-sized nuggets, and it's not meant to be too long. I hope this message has inspired you to get moving and gave you a bit of clarity into what to do next. So thank you for watching. Make sure that you subscribe, like, and share this video with someone you think would find it useful and helpful. And if you feel that you need to get to the root, make sure you just check out my Inner Child course. The link is in the description below, and I'll see y'all next week.